What's up, sneak peekers? My name's Nolan, and today we're with the composer of Your Friends and Neighbors and Emmy nominee, Dominic Lewis. How's it going?
It's good. How are you?
I'm doing good. The first question I have for you, how busy have you been with your Emmy campaign? A lot of people that might be watching might not know everything that goes into getting yourself from the nomination to September. So I want to know what's your schedule been like?
It's not too bad. I've had like a few interviews here and there and a couple of events, and there's some coming up. So it's not crazy.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, no, I have hired a PR team to try and help with the campaign. But I'm just enjoying being nominated because, in like a month's time it'll all be over. So
Yeah, I can imagine. And I imagine it's such an interesting feeling to be representing the show with your nomination. How has that process been?
I know that's wild. It seems funny that I'm the only nomination from the show. I'm
Yeah.
sure that will change next year
Mhm.
when season two comes out. Um, but yeah, no, it's great. I mean, honestly, I completely forgot about the Emmys, and then the morning it was announced, my phone was blowing up, and I was like, "What's all this about?" And then listened to a couple of voicemails. I was like, "Oh God, I've been nominated. That's crazy." So it's just really nice. It's really nice to be thought of. So that's cool.
Yeah, I can see that. Speaking of that, how did you become involved with your friends and neighbors? You've been on a few other Apple TV Plus shows, but how were you reached out for this one?
Um, It's a little complicated, but I'll try and be succinct in the story. I had worked with a producer on Kaleidoscope, who is married to the producer on Your Friends and Neighbors, and so the recommendation came there. And then I think they wanted to demo. They wanted to go out to a few composers to demo. Um, and I guess being a little bit thievery, I was like, no, I'm not demoing. Um, and then they sent me the scripts, and I was like, "Oh no, can I have another script? Because this is really good." And then and I think they cut me off at like four because I just kept asking for scripts. Um, and then I was like, "No, I actually really want this, so I will demo for it." And then, luckily I did, and now I'm on the show, which is cool.
I really loved hearing your composing throughout the show. I loved the sort of mystery that was going with it. I loved the drama. More than anything, I thought that I maybe should have a bigger bank account to be listening to this because I could feel the money that's in it. You can feel the wealth of your setting in it. I was wondering before you ever started writing anything, what were those sort of tones and themes that you were trying to bring into your score?
Yeah, I mean, it was very important for Jonathan. We had a long conversation. It's very important for him to keep the whimsy and the sort of light-hearted nature of it. Because if it was going to get too dark, he was worried that the audience would kind of switch off and not really be rooting for Coop, even though he's doing bad stuff, essentially.
Mhm.
So that was very important. The sort of melancholy of his character and the sort of depression of his character was very important. Um, so I needed to be able to move in lots of different ways. So that's why the piano felt like a good option. And I knew Jonathan loved the piano. So, I can have like felt pianos for the more emotional stuff. I can have very bright pop pianos for the more kind of action-based montage stuff. Um, and so, yeah, in terms of like dripping money, I had an idea at the beginning, which is so on the nose, and I'm glad it didn't stick. Um, to have the main palette be like piano and quartet. Um, but no one went for that. But luckily, I did get to do the quartet in episode seven for the funeral and for the wake and stuff. So that was super fun to be able to do that.
Speaking of further down in the show, there's so much with the start being somewhat slower, getting you into this world and showing everything off with the more interpersonal drama, and then the stakes getting higher and higher. How was it to make the your score to rise with it, to make everything feel as impactful as it was?
Well, I mean, that whole 9-10 minute scene, where at the end of it, Coop finally gets arrested.
Hmm.
Um, it was actually nice not to have the pressure of a full palette and to just literally have a quartet,
Uh-huh.
to do all that and to move between diegetic and non-diegetic, and then eventually, obviously, it combining in it and the quartet doing the main theme just before he gets arrested. So that was really nice not to have to be like, oh, what do I do? Do I go synthy? Do I go dark? To like, how do I make this transition? Um, but I think as a whole, moving through the season, I definitely started to introduce more dark synths as we get further on.
Uh-huh.
Um, and that came in really handy in the last couple of episodes, obviously. And then I was able to switch those synths up and make them nice and bright and euphoric at the end when supposedly everything's all right.
Mhm. And then one part that always stuck out to me is those split moments where Andrew's looking at whatever he's planning on stealing, and there's this graphic on the screen of everything about it. And I love how the music sort of it feels very educational and brighter during these moments. I always sort of love that. What was the conversation like to get that tone down?
Oh my god, dude! You wouldn't even. I can't even explain. It was. You're the first person to ask this of all the interviews I've done,
Hmm.
and it's like I just had a wash of PTSD. So it's called the QPB,
Hmm.
which is made up for the show, and just I can't even remember what that stands for, but um, I can't say how many versions. I mean, it was version after version. At first, it was like we want a sound effect, then we want, and it's because no one really knew what it should be.
Hmm.
And then in the end, I just went and watched a bunch of like watch commercials, like jewelry commercials, stuff that was just dripping in wealth. And
Hmm.
so eventually I mean, and they all kind of sound the same. So I was like, oh, well, I need some arpeggiated figure, and then like, and it needs to kind of be quick, so I need to get in and out of it. And it finally, I think probably version 1 million, it stuck. So then we were able to use that for most of them. But yeah, that was, and it's funny because I've been asked what was the hardest thing about the show, and I'd completely forgotten about that. And now you asked that. That was definitely the hardest thing of the show.
Well, I loved how it turned out. I had so much fun in those moments. It always stuck out to me.
Oh, I'm glad. Well, the pain was worth it then.
You can't keep up with the Joneses.
Going maybe now to the main title where you're nominated in, listening to some of your cohort and their main titles, one thing that sort of stuck out amongst yours was your work with Hamilton with the prominent vocals that were throughout it and how that tells a story in its own right during the theme. What was it like working with Hamilton? Was it any different than what it would be for a usual main title? What was the collaboration like?
Yeah, it was really different to the normal kind of MO of this thing. I went away and I wrote a version of the song, which isn't too far from where it ended up. But I mean, my lyrics were a little on the nose. They were fine, but they weren't great. And so everyone at Apple, Jonathan was really happy with the song. Um, but the lyrics were kind of there were multiple moments where the lyrics were bumping.
Mm.
Chorus was fine. And so when we eventually had Hamilton sign on, that was like his first mission, is to sort of make the lyrics more poetic, which he did a fabulous job with. And then he had a few ideas to sort of move the verse on. He did a little chord change in the middle of the verse.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it was great. I flew to New York. We hung out in the studio for 2 days and we hashed it out. I remember when we were coming up with the new lyrics, we were desperately trying to make microdoses cram into one of the choruses.
Mhm.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. I love collaborating. It's great. It's nice to just kind of get on with it and do it by yourself. But I'm equally into collaborating, and then obviously doing it with someone of such high caliber like Ham. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Now, I'm a little inexperienced with how the world of composing works, but I'm even more inexperienced with figuring out what that would be like for a main title like this with the VFX and everything.
Mm.
Comparing the VFX timeline to your timeline, how were you guys working together? What was the coordination like to have the main title all put together?
This was actually lovely because we were first, and they
Ah.
they did the VFX and main title to us.
Mhm.
So I didn't. The only thing I had to do is that we slightly miscalculated, or they did, or we did, whoever did it.
Mhm.
We miscalculated the length of it, so we had more animation than music. So I just had to just add that little piano figure as the wine glass is spinning towards
Yeah.
the to screen. just a little bit of the theme was the only kind of thing I did after the fact.
Mhm.
Other than that, it was all just cut to the song, which was great.
From the small experience I've seen with composing, I'd always found it a little bit stressful how you're always working with the cut you're given and
Yeah.
fit it. So it is interesting to hear how you were able to come first.
Yeah, it's very rare. Honest, I mean, that's like one of the only times that's ever happened. Normally, we're just, you know, drastically trying to keep up with the cut and change the music like every week. Um, Not so much in TV, actually. You get pretty close to the final cut in TV because the turnaround's so short. But movies, I mean, we'll be on the dub stage and things will be getting chopped, and you're like, okay, I got to go fix that piece of music now. That's why it's really important to have a great music editor on your team so they can chop around stuff. But this one, I didn't have to do much, so that's good.
It's good. Um, a month ago, I was lucky enough to talk with Blake Neely. He's a
Mm,
University of Texas alumni and previously won in your category for the flight attendant.
yeah,
He's a great guy. One
Blake's great.
one thing I loved hearing from him was how he sort of treats composing as sort of this impossible task to convey the emotion that might not be coming out through the production or the rest of post. I was wondering if you had any stories about being tasked with like the impossible task of having to convey something that might not have popped off on screen.
Nothing springs to mind of like overt discomfort doing that, but I mean, it's always tricky. Like, what I can say is that sometimes you take a pass at a cue or a scene or whatever what you want to call it, and then you think you've kind of nailed it, and the director will come back to you and be like, "Oh no, we want to show from this actor's perspective or this character's perspective, and I've got it completely the wrong way around."
Mm.
So that's happened a lot, and then once they say that, you're like, "Oh yeah, of course it's that. I'm an idiot." So that rather than like having to portray something that's not there. I mean, I'm sure I have, but nothing's coming to mind, for example.
What is it like to work with these other perspectives? Were there strong themes that you had for each character, or how were you trying to work around making sure each perspective felt a certain way?
The main objective was to have obviously Coop at the center of everything because he is. And then it was more like I've done this a few times in shows where it's like how that theme is changed and molded when he's interacting with different people. Um, because people are coming in and out the screen and they have bigger roles, smaller roles. So Coop has his theme, Mel has a theme. Um, who else has themes? And the rest of it's kind of just more how I'm sculpting the main title music and the main thematic material
Mhm.
for that particular moment or for that particular character. Moving into season two, with the introduction of James Marsden, he has a theme. I've just been working on his theme, so it sort of depends, but I mean everything's Coop. Like I've actually come up with new themes for Coop. I've got to run them by Jonathan, but just as characters are evolving, so are themes and so are motifs.
Yeah. Uh, Another thing Blake had briefly talked about was just when he's dealing with all his electronic sounds and he's getting bored, something isn't hitting, he'll just start recording random items in his office, him just hitting it with another thing and try to see if that could be incorporated into his soundboard. Is that something that you follow with, or what makes up the noises that you were using for this soundtrack?
Oh yeah, I'm really guilty of that. Mostly what I'll do is I'll pull this mic. You can see have it there all the time. I just pull it in. I'll just make crazy noises with my mouth, or I'll sing stuff, and then I'll get in there and like manipulate them and move them around. And that's become a big part of my process. Actually, it's just like singing stuff. It's like I don't know what should do the melody here. Oh, I'll just sing it, and then I'll either keep it as a vocal or I'll change it to sound not like a vocal on some weird string instrument. So that's been a really huge part of my flow writing in the last few years. And I think it brings something different to the soundscape, and it also speeds things up so much.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can see some of that because you have a history in singing, don't you?
I do, yeah, yeah,
I can see how that could have influenced it. I loved hearing sort of that part. I feel like at parts the strings can sort of feel like vocals.
yeah, yeah. They do. I mean, I got told off quite a lot because and certain executives and producers were not into the vocals, and I just kept like hammering them. I was just like, well, I'll try it one more time. I snuck some through. But if I had my way, it would have been a lot more vocal heavy. And my initial demos were like full of vocals. But I got slapped on the wrist a little bit, and some of them got deleted, but some of
Oh,
them stayed.
I'd love to see some more in the season too.
I'm gonna try. I'm definitely gonna try. I'll get another slap on the wrist, but I'm gonna try.
I told you.
I was lucky enough to see Nobody 2 on Monday. Another's
Oh, cool.
I love that one, but it was sort of a whiplash between these two. The sounds between them. I feel like you have such a different sound when it comes to these different genres, especially maybe going from this drama to something very action oriented like that. Do you find that like you have a specific voice for a specific genre you work on? Are you reinventing your sound whenever you get a new project? What do you think is tying them all together?
Um, I don't know. I mean, the common denominator is obviously me, and I'm just like I'm always trying to do something different with whatever's in front of me. Just trying to just push the envelope a little bit and not do what you necessarily would expect. Um, and I'm given the freedom with 87 North stuff. The David and Kelly are so gracious and supportive, and they let me do some pretty wacky stuff.
Mhm.
Um, and they were actually kind of responsible for unlocking the vocals in my music and allowing that, and they championed that. So
Mhm.
that's they're very responsible for my sound. It started on Bullet Train, and I was in the sandbox making crazy stuff and mixing genres. And I think that's what it's about, really. It's about me just mixing genres that shouldn't necessarily go together. Um, and in doing so, I create something different and new, I hope.
Um, and this is a university organization again. I can't imagine all the ways that the Royal Academy of Music must be so different than the University of Texas. But, but
I can't imagine that either.
I want to sort of know going into education and studying further, what sort of in that experience shaped your career path, and did anything get added to your artistic style there? Did you just shift how you thought about where you were going?
Um, without being too, I don't know what the word is, but I feel like the Academy sort of really set me up for life, just mainly because of the rejection within it.
Mm,
I was in a system that was very much looked down upon film music and media music.
mm,
And the great thing about that was there was a selected few professors, I mean, that really like supported me and really helped me through, because my goal was very clear from the minute I turned up. I was going to move to Los Angeles. I was going to be a film composer, and that was that.
mhm,
And I had an insanely wonderful orchestration teacher called Chris Austin,
mm,
um, who I think saw that passion and shared it. And we have a love of John Williams, and we would countless lessons just discussing him and his orchestration, and he was wonderful. I think that it just made me work harder when a lot of the people at the Academy were like, "Oh, well, you write media music; it's not important."
mm.
Um, so without without damning them, because it was a wonderful experience. But I think that's the first time in my life there was a lot of rejection in what I do, and it just made me work harder. Um, and also like just being around incredibly talented people 24/7. Um, and just like sitting around practice rooms and learning how instruments work, and and also me given the freedom to do whatever I wanted to do. I started bands. I did different things that people weren't necessarily doing at the Royal Academy. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but
No,
yeah.
it does. I think there's a lot that goes into that. I think a lot of college students have to sort of face the idea that some people have that maybe what they're going into isn't proper or something like that. But I think it's important for them to know that this is the kind of place where you can become the best at something, and the best at something is going to be good wherever you end up.
Yeah, I mean, I view it as a very bittersweet experience. I made some of the best friends of my life. I'm still working on every project with one of them. I look back on it very fondly, but at the same time, there was that like strand of. Well, I look back on that too fondly because it pushed me to get to where I am, and talking with you today. So it's all good. It was all good.
Going into season two, you've talked a little bit about how the sound is going to be changing. Is the main title going to be changing, or is it going to stay how it is now?
I think it's going to stay. I don't think we're going to pull a White Lotus on anyone. I think it's staying. I don't know if it's going to get shorter or longer. Maybe it would be the only thing that might change, but I've heard nothing about that. I think it's just going to stay as is,
Yeah,
as it should.
no mess
Um,
with perfection.
well, I don't know about that, but people get used to stuff, don't they? And they get angry when it gets changed.
Mm. Yeah, I get that. And then final question. Do you have any advice you might give a college student who wants to enter a field similar to yours on what they can be doing right now, either in college or after college, to get them where you are?
Other than run away, I would say I think now is the time as a student. I wish I'd been a little bit more, I mean, I was, but I wish I'd been a little bit more of a sponge and I just listened to more stuff. I'd been more curious about the things I really enjoyed listening to and tried to figure out how they worked. Because I did spend, too much time as an additional composer, like, oh, how does that work? I've got to go figure that out. I wish I'd done that work when I had the time, when I was in college. Not that I wasn't doing that, but no, I just felt like I could have done it more.
Mhm.
Um, but at the end of the day, I said this to someone recently. I said, this business, this world is so competitive and so tough, and you have to like spend every waking minute once you get out of college pursuing that if that's what you want to pursue. That enjoy yourself. Get
Mhm.
your grades or whatever and study what you need to do, but just like use the time to live. Because I've spent the first 5 to 10 years out here just like in a room writing music. And like that's what I wanted to do, don't get me wrong, but live a little at college, enjoy yourself, have experiences, just do what you want to do for a little bit. Because life, you know, it gets tough when you get out of school, when you get out of college. There's
Mhm.
some responsibilities and things that don't necessarily they're not necessarily easy. So that would be my main advice. Enjoy yourself where you can, get life experiences, listen to as much as you can, go to gigs, do all the stuff that when you're in a job you don't get to do.
You know what? That's fair. I think a lot of people need to be hearing that with their college time.
I think so too. Yeah, because you get so caught up and I've got to study and I've got to get this and I've got to do that. It's like, I mean, what's the average age of a student? 20, 21.
Mhm.
So enjoy yourself. It's the rest of your life to be stuck in a room studying and writing and doing all those things. Just enjoy yourself. Don't fail, but like, have fun.
Yeah. Well, that's all the questions I have. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm excited to see how it ends up at the Emmys.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Take
Have
care.